Imagine for a moment that you are walking through life with a kind of unshakable calmness. Someone insults you, and instead of reacting, you simply smile as if they had whispered into the wind. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and rather than exploding with rage, you simply breathe and carry on. A colleague undermines you, a friend disappoints you, a stranger mocks you. Yet none of it disturbs the stillness at your core. You are untouchable, not because you are cold or detached, but because you have discovered something most people never realize. Anger is not something others give to you. It is something you choose to pick up. This video is titled, How to Never Get Angry or Bothered by Anyone. And today we will explore this truth through the timeless wisdom of Alan Watts and the contemporary insights of Byung-Chul Han. Watts, the philosopher who made Eastern thought accessible to Western audiences, constantly reminded us that resistance to life creates suffering. Byung-Chul Han, one of today's most influential philosophers, exposes how modern society, driven by endless productivity, comparison, and digital overstimulation, makes us fragile, easily irritated, and quick to anger. Put together, their voices help us uncover a path to genuine freedom. They teach us that never getting angry is not about suppression, nor is it about pretending to be indifferent. It is about seeing through the illusions that create anger in the first place. To never get angry is not to be numb, but to be free, to live in a state where others no longer dictate your emotional weather. In this journey, we will move step by step, part by part, uncovering the traps that keep us enslaved to irritation and the practices that can set us free. And we begin by asking the simplest, yet most overlooked question: why do we get angry at all? Part 1. Why we get angry, the trap of the ego. At its core, anger is almost always a reaction of the ego. Alan Watts often described the ego as a kind of social mask, a story we tell ourselves about who we are. It is not our true self, but a fragile image we construct and defend. And when someone insults us, questions us, or disregards us, it feels like an attack on that image. Think of it this way. If a toddler shouts, "You're stupid," you don't take it seriously. You might laugh because you know the child has no real understanding of you. But if a colleague, a partner, or a rival says the same thing in front of others, suddenly it burns. Why? Because now your ego feels exposed. The sting is not in the words themselves, but in the meaning you attach to them. Alan Watts explained that most people live trapped in this drama, forgetting that the self they are defending is just a character in a play. He often compared life to a cosmic dance where roles shift and change. When you identify too strongly with your role, your reputation, your pride, your self-image, then any threat to it feels unbearable. Anger is simply the ego's attempt to protect itself. Byung-Chul Han deepens this analysis for our modern age. He observes that today's society is an achievement society, where everyone is constantly comparing, competing, and performing. In such a culture, our identities are no longer just personal masks. They are public profiles, constantly measured and judged by others. Social media has amplified this problem. A single negative comment on your post can ruin your day. A colleague receiving more praise than you can feel like a personal insult. In such a world, anger becomes almost inevitable. Because our sense of self is fragile, always exposed, always seeking validation. But here is the liberating truth. When you realize that the self being attacked is not who you truly are, the attack loses its power. If someone insults your shadow on the wall, do you get offended? No, because you know it's not you. The same is true of the ego. It is a shadow, not your essence. When you see this clearly, anger dissolves like mist in the morning sun. Watts once shared a Zen story that illustrates this beautifully. Imagine being struck by an arrow. If it were an accident, you would feel pain but not anger. If it were intentional, you would feel rage. Notice the arrow is the same. What changed is your interpretation. The mind adds a story and the ego reacts. To be free of anger, then, is not to change the world but to see through the story. So the first key is this. Recognize the ego, see it as a mask, and remember that insults are aimed at the mask, not at your true self. Part 2. The illusion of control. Why we try to dominate others. If the ego is one root of anger, the other is the illusion of control. People get angry because reality refuses to follow their script. A friend behaves differently than expected. A stranger cuts in line. A child doesn't obey. A colleague ignores your advice. And immediately frustration arises. We want the world to bend, but the world resists. Alan Watts often said that trying to control life is like trying to grab water with your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the less you hold. The more we demand reality to follow our expectations, the more anger we generate when it refuses. We think we are protecting order, but we are only fueling suffering. Byung-Chul Han notes that in today's digital culture, this desire for control has exploded. On social media, we are not only performers of our own lives, but also critics of others. We react instantly, commenting, arguing, debating, trying to shape how others speak, think, or behave. The digital stage tempts us into constant judgment, and judgment feeds irritation. Anger has become entertainment, a spectacle, even a kind of social currency. But what if we let go? What if we stopped demanding that others act as we wish? What if we stopped insisting that the river flow in the direction of our will? Then suddenly others would lose their power to upset us. You cannot be disappointed if you never expected the world to follow your script. Watts loved to use the image of the ocean. When you stand before the waves, you do not demand that they move a certain way. You watch, you marvel, you flow with them. If a wave crashes unexpectedly, you laugh, because you know the ocean does not exist to serve you. Life is the same. People are the same. When you stop trying to control them, you stop being bothered by them. Byung-Chul Han warns that our performance society has turned individuals into both masters and slaves. We control ourselves harshly and then project that control onto others. To be free of anger, we must step outside of this cycle. We must realize that peace comes not from controlling, but from allowing. So the second key is this: release the illusion of control. Let people be as they are. Flow with life instead of resisting it. Part 3. The mirror of projection. How we see ourselves in others. One of the most profound truths revealed by both ancient wisdom and modern philosophy is that much of what angers us in others is not really about them. It is about us. What we reject, criticize, or despise in another person often mirrors something unresolved within ourselves. This is what psychologists call projection. Alan Watts often laughed at the way we point fingers, forgetting that the things which irritate us most in others are frequently shadows of our own mind. Think of it. Why do you feel so enraged when someone interrupts you, but another person in the same situation simply shrugs and moves on? Why does arrogance in one person enrage you, while it may amuse someone else? It is because anger often strikes where we secretly recognize something we fear or dislike in ourselves. The world is a mirror, and what we see in others is shaped by what lies within us. Byung-Chul Han's analysis of the modern age makes this mirror even clearer. In the achievement society, where everyone is expected to maximize their performance and present their polished self to the world, we become hypersensitive to flaws in others. We criticize others for being lazy because we are secretly afraid of our own exhaustion. We mock others for being boastful because we ourselves crave recognition. We lash out at others for being rude because deep inside, we have not resolved our own inner aggression. In this way, anger becomes less about the world outside and more about the wounds inside. Alan Watts would often remind us, when you get angry at someone, pause and ask, what is this revealing about me? If you feel intense irritation at someone's selfishness, perhaps it is because you have not reconciled your own selfish impulses. If someone's arrogance disturbs you deeply, perhaps it is because your own ego longs for superiority. This does not mean you are guilty, nor does it mean you must suppress your reactions. It means that anger is an invitation to self-knowledge. Every irritation points toward something unhealed in yourself. So the third key is this: see anger as a mirror. Instead of blaming others for your irritation, ask what truth about yourself is being revealed. When you turn anger into self-inquiry, the fire that once consumed you becomes a light that guides you inward. Part 4. The trap of time, living in the past and future. Another subtle but powerful source of anger lies in our relationship with time. Notice how often your anger is not about what is happening right now, but about what already happened, or about what you fear will happen. You replay insults in your head long after they were spoken. You anticipate conflicts before they occur. In both cases, you are not present. You are trapped in memory and anticipation. Alan Watts emphasized that life is only ever lived in the present moment. Yet most of us resist this truth, clinging to grievances from the past or anxieties about the future. Someone may have wronged you yesterday, but if you are angry today, it is not them hurting you, it is your memory. The past does not exist except in thought, and yet we let shadows of memory disturb our peace. Byung-Chul Han's writings on modern digital culture show how technology amplifies this problem. Social media archives every mistake, every insult, every controversy. Nothing is allowed to fade. Instead of letting go, we scroll back, revisit, and reignite old conflicts. At the same time, the pressure of performance keeps us anxious about the future, about how we will appear, how we will succeed, how we will be judged. We live suspended between a past we cannot change and a future we cannot control. And in this suspension, irritation thrives. But what happens if you root yourself in the present? When you fully inhabit the now, anger dissolves. Imagine being insulted. If you remain in the present, the insult is nothing more than sound vibrations, already gone as quickly as they came. Only when you cling to memory do they linger. If you fear betrayal tomorrow, it is not reality disturbing you. It is imagination. Watts once asked his students, "Show me the past. Where is it? Show me the future. Where is it? All you have is this moment. And in this moment, anger is impossible unless you invite it in." Byung-Chul Han similarly argues that only by stepping out of the endless cycles of performance and digital memory can we reclaim a sense of presence. So the fourth key is this: anchor yourself in the present moment. Release the chains of memory and the prison of anticipation. In the now, no one can truly bother you. Part 5. The economy of attention, choosing where to place your mind. Perhaps the most practical truth of all is this: anger survives only where you feed it attention. Your mind is like a field, and whatever you water will grow. If you water resentment, resentment grows. If you water calmness, calmness grows. Anger is not simply forced upon you. It is sustained by your choice of focus. Alan Watts often reminded listeners that attention is the most precious form of energy. If you keep replaying an insult, you are feeding it. If you keep thinking about how unfair someone was, you are nourishing the very thing that hurts you. But if you shift your attention, even slightly, towards something else, the anger begins to starve. It cannot survive without your mental participation. Byung-Chul Han connects this to the broader problem of our overstimulated age. Today, countless forces compete for our attention. Advertisements, notifications, news alerts, endless streams of content. The economy of the 21st century is not based only on goods and services. It is based on attention. Whoever captures your attention controls your mind. And anger, outrage, and controversy are among the most powerful ways to capture it. That is why digital platforms thrive on outrage. It keeps you engaged. The more you react, the more you scroll, the more you are hooked. To never get angry, then, is partly an act of reclaiming your attention. You must become deliberate about where your mind rests. If someone insults you and you replay it for hours, you have given them rent-free space in your consciousness. But if you notice the thought, smile, and redirect your attention to something more nourishing, you reclaim your freedom. Watts compared the mind to the sky and thoughts to clouds. Some clouds are dark and stormy, others light and passing. If you fixate on one cloud, you forget the vastness of the sky. In the same way, when you fixate on anger, you forget the vastness of your life. Byung-Chul Han would say that in a culture of overstimulation, calmness itself is an act of rebellion. Choosing not to let anger dominate your attention is choosing to step outside the machinery of manipulation. So the fifth key is this: guard your attention. What you focus on grows. If you stop feeding anger with your attention, it cannot survive. Part 6. The power of compassion. Transforming anger into understanding. If anger is the fire that burns, then compassion is the water that cools. Many spiritual traditions, including those Alan Watts drew upon, remind us that when we shift from judgment to understanding, irritation dissolves naturally. Watts often spoke about the illusion of separateness. He reminded us that the people who upset us are not truly others, but reflections of the same universal process of life. The ocean does not fight its waves, for each wave belongs to the ocean. Similarly, when you see that others are shaped by causes and conditions beyond their control, your anger begins to soften. Think about it. When a child throws a tantrum, do you take it as a personal insult? No, you see that the child is overwhelmed, lacking tools to manage emotions. But when an adult lashes out, we rarely extend the same compassion. We assume they should know better. Yet, as Watts would remind us, adults are often just children in larger bodies, still ruled by fears, insecurities, and conditioning. To be angry at them is like being angry at a storm. Byung-Chul Han adds another layer here. He observes that modern society pushes individuals into states of exhaustion, anxiety, and competition. In such a culture, irritation and aggression are not signs of evil, but symptoms of pain. When someone snaps at you, it may be less about you and more about the invisible pressures they carry. When you understand this, anger transforms into empathy. Compassion does not mean allowing abuse, nor does it mean accepting injustice. It means you refuse to add fuel to the fire. You see anger not as something to return, but as a signal of suffering. Just as you would not kick a wounded animal, you do not respond to human pain with more hostility. Instead, you step aside or respond with clarity. Watts told a story about a Zen master who was insulted by a warrior. Instead of replying with anger, the master simply bowed and said, "Thank you." The warrior, confused, asked, "Why do you thank me?" The master replied, "Because you have shown me where my ego was still alive." This is compassion in action. To see the anger of others not as poison to consume, but as information to learn from. So the sixth key is this: replace judgment with compassion. When you see anger as pain in disguise, your own irritation fades and is replaced with understanding. Part 7. The practice of letting go, living beyond anger. Even with all this wisdom, there is still one final truth to embody. Anger does not leave simply because you understand it. You must practice letting go. Alan Watts often said that letting go is like breathing. You cannot hold your breath forever. In the same way, you cannot hold on to anger without suffocating. To let go is to exhale, to release what no longer serves you.
Why is letting go so difficult?
Because the ego craves drama. It feeds on being right, on proving a point, on winning an argument. That is why even after a conflict ends, you replay it in your head, imagining clever comebacks. The mind does not want peace, it wants victory. But victory never satisfies for long. Only release brings peace. Byung-Chul Han would argue that in today's society of burnout, people cling to anger because it gives them a sense of vitality in an otherwise drained life. Outrage becomes a way to feel alive. But this is a counterfeit energy. It is fire that consumes rather than warms. To truly live, one must let go of the endless cycle of irritation and step into stillness. Letting go is not a one-time act, it is a practice. Each time irritation arises, you have a choice. Will you grip it or will you release it? Like a bird perched on your hand. Anger cannot harm you if you open your palm and let it fly away. But if you grasp it tightly, it claws and wounds you. The choice is always yours. Watts encouraged people to treat life like music. Music is not meant to reach a final note. It is meant to be enjoyed as it unfolds. Anger disrupts the melody, creating harsh noise where there could be harmony. Letting go restores the music. Byung-Chul Han similarly urges us to step away from the noise of overstimulation and rediscover the beauty of silence. So the seventh key is this: make letting go a daily practice. Do not cling to the insult, the frustration, the drama. Release it and you release yourself. Ending. Becoming untouchable. And so we arrive at the end of this journey. We have seen that anger does not come from others, it comes from the ego we defend. The control we seek, the projections we cast, the time we cling to, the attention we waste, the compassion we withhold, and the grudges we refuse to release. Each of these steps is a key, and together they open the door to a life where no one can truly disturb your peace. Alan Watts taught us to see life as a dance, a flowing river, a cosmic play where the self is but a mask. Byung-Chul Han reminds us that in our age of constant comparison, performance, and overstimulation, The real rebellion is to remain calm, present, and free. When you combine their insights, you realize that the power to never get angry or bothered is not about changing the world. It is about changing how you see it. Imagine living this way, walking through life untouched, not because nothing happens to you, but because you see through it all. Insults become echoes, conflicts become lessons. Other people's storms no longer drown you, for you have discovered the stillness of your own center. This does not mean you become weak, passive, or indifferent. On the contrary, you become stronger, freer, more alive. For when no one can steal your peace, you become unshakable. You move through the world not as a victim of every irritation, but as a master of your inner state. So remember these 7 keys. 1. Recognize the ego. 2. Release control. 3. See the mirror of projection. 4. Anchor in the present. Guard your attention. 6. Transform judgment into compassion. 7. And practice letting go. If you live by these, anger will no longer own you. Others may still try to provoke, but their arrows will pass through you like shadows. You will discover what true freedom feels like, the freedom of being untouchable. And as Watts might say with a smile, when you stop taking life so seriously, you start to enjoy it. So step into this freedom and let no one ever again steal your peace.